Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ailsa, and for today's video, I thought I would share with you the top tips I have to prepare for your yoga teacher training. So I often have students talking to me or emailing me about taking the leap and signing up for a yoga teacher training. So I thought it would be useful to cover the tips that I've picked up from my experience of doing yoga teacher trainings, and specifically for doing a 200-hour intensive yoga teacher training. So I trained back in October 2017, so 3 years ago now, at the Suryalila Retreat Centre, and I trained with Frog Lotus International. And it's a 3-week, 200-hour Vinyasa flow teacher training. So my tips will be specific to that style of teacher training. So there's actually 3 styles of teacher training that you can take. The first one is maybe you'll have monthly weekends where you go to a local studio in your area and you train with the teachers there, and the entire training might take 6 months or a year. And in that time, you build your 200 hours of experience. The second option is an intensive, which I did, which might take 3 to 4 weeks or a month, and usually involves going to a retreat center, staying there and completely immersing yourself in the yoga teacher training. And then the third option is a combination of the two. So it'll incorporate long weekends of training, but then you might go away at the end of the teacher training for maybe 2 weeks or a week to round off the training and complete the entire process. So my tips will be applicable to all 3 styles of teacher training, but I just thought it would be good to caveat that my experience was going to an intensive yoga teacher training. And I'll leave links to the teacher training that I did and also to the retreat center as well. It's a really stunning space in Andalusia in the south of Spain. So my first tip is quite a general tip, and it's to think about what kind of learning style you have. And this will help you choose which style of yoga teacher training will suit you. So for me, I like to be fully immersed in an experience. I tend to get very enthusiastic about a new endeavor that I'm taking. I tend to throw myself in and want to start straight away, and I learn quite quickly and I pick things up quite quickly. And on the converse of those features, I know that it's quite easy for me to lose momentum and enthusiasm, and I get distracted quite quickly. So I know my pluses and my minuses, and with both those in mind, I chose an intensive. I wanted to completely immerse myself in the yoga experience. So my first tip would be to think about what kind of person you are, what kind of learning style you have, and what kind of experience you want to have as well. My second tip to prepare for your yoga teacher training is to think about what your expectations are for the yoga teacher training. Do you want to teach? Do you want to have a bit more of a reflective experience? Do you want to figure something out? So there isn't a right and wrong expectation to have for your yoga teacher training. I was actually really surprised at how many people didn't intend to teach, and I would say it would be about over half of the people that were on my yoga teacher training didn't plan to teach afterwards, and the rest planned to. So for me, I was definitely going to teach. I'd known that I wanted to do this for the past 4 years, so I felt very ready to move on to teaching afterwards. But whereas other people were coming for different reasons, and they had different expectations of the course. So neither is right or wrong. It's just knowing yourself and knowing why you decided to go on a yoga teacher training. And there is a little bit of a cliche when you read the descriptions of these trainings. Quite often the term a transformational, life-changing experience is used to describe these trainings, and you'll notice it as you come across lots of different trainings that this is a thread that runs through. And I definitely agree that it is a life-changing experience. However, if you're going to be more reflective and trying to figure something out, maybe you have a question that's in your mind about your life, I will say that if you're going on an intensive, it is only 3 to 4 weeks or perhaps a month long. And in the grand scheme of your life, that isn't a lot of time. So it's definitely a reflective experience by nature. Yoga is a very reflective and inward looking practice. But I will say that in this grand scheme of things, it is also a small amount of time in your life. So you might not actually have those profound realizations that you'd like to have. You might not figure out the answer to that question that you've been ruminating on. But I will say that you will have a transformational experience, and it might take you along that path to knowing a little bit more about yourself, or knowing a little bit more about what you need to answer that question for yourself. And when these trainings describe themselves as life-changing and transformational, it puts a lot of expectation. It makes you think that every day is going to be an enlightened and a profound experience. But in actual fact, life isn't always like that. There'll be some days where you find it difficult. There'll be some days where you'll question why you decided to do the training. There'll be some days where you don't feel as enthused about the training. But the question I will ask you is that when in your life over the course of a month have you had a wholly positive experience? And I'm sure the answer is probably no. There'll be days of peaks of happiness and feeling fulfilled, and there'll be days of troughs where you feel exhausted and maybe not as passionate. But this is a normal part of life, and so as soon as you accept this as part of your training, you'll put less expectation on the training itself and just enjoy the entire process and journey and allow the experience to unfold for itself. The third tip I have is to prepare yourself physically. So in the training that I did, every morning we started with half an hour of meditation and then about 2 hours of physical yoga asana. And then throughout the day, we would be practicing each other's classes, we'd be practicing poses. So it was a very physically exhausting experience. And so my tip would be to make sure that you're doing yoga in the style of your yoga teacher training. So I did Vinyasa flow practice. So I practiced mostly Vinyasa flow, but not all the time. If you did a hatha yoga teacher training, then you would do mostly hatha yoga. And to do that practice 3 to 5 times a week for at least 6 months before the teacher training. This will help to prepare your body physically and help to mitigate or lessen the chance of getting injured. But one thing I will say is that I was really worried about feeling like I should be able to do certain poses. So when I did my teacher training, I couldn't do a handstand and I couldn't do a supported headstand. And I felt really worried by not being able to do these poses, it would kind of lessen my message as a teacher, lessen my credentials as a teacher. And even though the training that I did exposed me to lots of challenging and advanced poses, it did it in a way where everyone was moving at their own pace and there was no expectation that you had to achieve certain poses in order to become a yoga teacher. And this is something that I always tell students if they're thinking about doing a yoga teacher training. Do not worry about what you can physically do. That won't make you a good teacher. It's more about communicating and teaching your students about the physical and the mental and the spiritual aspects of yoga. It's not about you being able to achieve certain poses. So there's finding that balance of preparing the body physically so that you're strong and you're as healthy as you can be, but also understanding that you'll be working with your own limitations. And on my teacher training, there was quite a lot of people who for whatever reason couldn't do certain poses, perhaps because of pre-existing health conditions or injuries. So being able to pike into a handstand and to post it on Instagram, that won't make you a good yoga teacher. So don't worry about having to achieve certain poses before you go to your teacher training. I'll also recommend that even though you're predominantly practicing the style of yoga that you'd like to teach or learn about teaching, I will say it's good to try lots of teachers and to try lots of different styles. This will broaden your knowledge of yoga and help you explore what you like in a teacher, what you would like to share when you teach. So what does a teacher do with their language to create an atmosphere in a class? What sort of elements do they add to a class to make it a joyful and enriching experience? So overall, it's about finding that balance of going to one teacher a lot, but then also peppering in a few other teachers and a few other styles as well. So my fourth tip is to prepare yourself as much as you can in terms of the theory. So especially with a yoga teacher training that's an intensive, I'm still surprised at how much information I managed to learn and to keep in my head after the training. It was so much information in such a short period of time. And that really is a testament to the course structure itself, as it really built up your knowledge in a very logical way that allowed you to literally add on different blocks and different layers of teaching. So beginning with sun salutations, incorporating Sanskrit and English pose names, and also alignment cues as well. So one thing I would recommend is creating flashcards with the English and the Sanskrit name and perhaps just a stick figure of each pose and learning them beforehand. Also, if your intensive has an anatomy focus, which mine did, then I would also recommend familiarizing, but not necessarily learning, but familiarizing yourself with the muscles and the bones in the body. And then also with most trainings, there'll be a reading list. So I definitely encourage you to make sure that you read through the recommended reading prior to the training and familiarize yourself with that information. And by doing that, that means that you can focus your energy on the information that isn't in the textbooks while you're at the training. And then one useful question is to ask the course organizer what a typical day in the training will look like and an indication of how many days you'll get off. So in the training that I did at Suryalila Retreat Centre, we had 1 day off. So it gives you an idea of what the expectations of the course are and what the style of teaching will be. And then my fifth tip is to make friends. So you must like yoga a lot if you've decided to devote a lot of time, energy, and money into going to a yoga teacher training. And it's a great opportunity to meet people who are as enthused and as passionate about yoga as you are. If you're planning to teach afterwards, it's a great networking opportunity. As I said, I did my training 3 years ago now, and I'm still in touch with a lot of my close friends on the course. Maybe via social media or if we've met up a few times since then as well. So I definitely recommend spending time with your fellow students. I also know that I learn by communicating with others and discussing ideas and concepts with others. So allow yourself to learn together. This can be a really good resource and a really good way to help ingrain the knowledge for you. Also, I think it's a great way to ride the emotional roller coaster that is a yoga teacher training. It's an intense experience, and if you're doing a month-long course, that's literally 200 hours of learning time in such a short period of time. So by making friends, you'll feel less lonely, you'll feel more supported, and you're all having this unique and crazy experience together. It really is a bit of a wild ride, and I really enjoy reminiscing about that experience with my friends that I made on my course. A problem shared is definitely a problem halved, as they say. So what better way to share that experience than sharing it with someone who knows exactly what you're going through? So my fifth tip is to make sure that you make friends on this wild experience. My sixth tip is to make sure that you switch off. So different courses will have different structures of the day, but I'm sure they're pretty similar across the board. For my experience, we started at 7 a.m. with meditation, and then we'd have breaks throughout the day, but we'd be consistently working, and I usually finish my homework at around 10 p.m. at night. So it was a full on day. And considering that we worked every day and only had one day off, it was a huge amount of mental capacity needed to focus your attention on the task in hand. So, in order to cope, I definitely recommend having a mindless activity to help you switch off for maybe 10 to 20 minutes at various points throughout the day. I don't think that you're going to be reading any books because you're already reading textbooks and reading stuff for homework. I recommend focusing on mindless, easy activities. So I love to watch YouTube, but you could also watch Netflix, just something that allows your mind to rest. So some piece of easy entertainment that doesn't require much mental energy. I took a few books to my training thinking enthusiastically that I would finish them throughout the duration of the course, and I didn't touch them. At the end of the day, my brain was fried and I couldn't ask any more of it. We also got into the habit of walking after lunch, and this was a great time to spend time with friends that I was making on the course, but also to just decompress and get some fresh air. So I think taking a little bit of gentle walking exercise each day will also be really beneficial, allow your brain to rest and assimilate all that knowledge. So my sixth tip is to make sure you have something to help you switch off. My seventh tip is to prepare your friends and your family. So as I've said throughout this video again and again, the days are long and they're packed with information. So by asking that question to your course organizer about what a typical day looks like, you can tell your friends, your loved ones, your family about what they can expect from you. Perhaps you want to completely shut off from the world around you. Perhaps you don't want to be on social media, you just want to immerse yourself in the experience. So if you want to do that, that could be a really enriching experience, but make sure that you communicate that with your loved ones so that they know you'll be disappearing for a few weeks. Or perhaps schedule in some catch-up times with your friends and family. So if you're feeling a little bit homesick, if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling low energy and a bit unenthusiastic, so you can look forward to those catch-up calls with your friends and family, and hopefully that'll be able to lift your energy and lift your enthusiasm for the course. And then my eighth tip is to prepare for after the course. So the retreat centre that I went to is near Seville in the south of Spain. So I actually booked about a week off afterwards, and I ended up spending some time in Seville with a friend that I made on my course. So it was really nice to decompress. It was really nice to enjoy and celebrate the high of completing our yoga teacher training, but also it was a lovely way to ease ourselves back into normal everyday life. So perhaps prepare yourself to need some time to rest. It's an intense experience, it's very tiring. So if you can, book off that time to just rest and recover rather than going straight back into your full-time job or straight back into your normal life. You also want to enjoy the achievement that you've made. You want to celebrate the fact that you've finished the teacher training. So by having that little bit of space, you can really marinate in that sense of achievement and feel good about yourself. It's a big thing to commit to and to complete. So you also want to celebrate your achievements. So my eighth tip is to just think a little bit about preparing for after your yoga teacher training. And my final tip is to just be open-minded and open to others and open to the experience of going on a yoga teacher training. For me, it really was an enriching and it was a transformational experience, and it did end up changing my life. Everyone I've spoken to has had a positive experience from a yoga teacher training. It's just that those positive experiences manifest themselves in a different way. So if you're wondering whether you should do a teacher training, I say go for it, enjoy yourself, and celebrate yourself when you finish the yoga teacher training. And if you have any more questions related to going on a teacher training, then please feel free to leave them in the comments below this video. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. And as always, please subscribe to my channel. I upload every Wednesday and Sunday, and I create Vinyasa flow yoga classes, gentle yoga classes, yoga nidra and meditations, and then videos like this where I talk about intentional living, mindfulness, and wellness. And also, if you'd like to keep up to date with me, then feel free to consider subscribing to my email newsletter. I send out emails roughly twice a month, and I share quotes, I share information about special one-off events, share information about online courses and videos, and extra musings about yoga and my own yoga journey and helping you on your yoga journey. So if you'd like to keep up to date with me, then feel free to consider subscribing. There's a link in the video description below this video. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you for practicing with me.